Woodstock 1969 wasn't just a music festival, it was a revolution. You know the legends, but what about the hidden moments no one talks about? Get ready to discover rare photos and untold stories that reveal a whole new side of the greatest festival in history. Let's dive into the magic behind the myth. Tim Hardin's unforgettable moment at Woodstock. On the very first day of Woodstock, Tim Hardin took the stage. Just him, his band, and that unmistakable voice. One of the standout moments was his performance of "If I Were a Carpenter," a song that managed to quiet a crowd of thousands and pull them right into the emotion of the music. Hardin didn't need flashy effects or a giant band behind him. His guitar and his voice were more than enough. And for his performance, he earned $2,000, a pretty impressive paycheck back in 1969, especially for a set that would become part of music history. Looking at these rare photos today, you can almost feel the raw, honest energy he brought to the stage. Dancing through the rain at Woodstock. When the skies opened up over Woodstock and the rain came pouring down, you might think the crowd would run for cover. But not this crowd. Sure, a few people scrambled for shelter, if they could even find any. But most stayed right where they were. They didn't run from the storm. They danced in it. With mud underfoot and rain soaking their clothes, the music never stopped. Instead of letting the weather ruin the moment, they embraced it, turning a soaking wet disaster into a once-in-a-lifetime jam session. The sound of the rain mixed with the music, creating a wild, unforgettable rhythm that no stage could have planned. It was pure Woodstock, a celebration of spirit, resilience, and joy, no matter what the skies decided to throw their way. Graveyard sleepovers at Woodstock. When 500,000 people showed up at Woodstock, finding a place to sleep became a real challenge. Some folks got so desperate, they ended up crashing in the unlikeliest spot, the nearby graveyard. Can you imagine that? Trying to get some shut-eye surrounded by old headstones in the eerie quiet of a cemetery. It definitely wasn't comfortable, and it probably wasn't easy on the nerves either. But when you're exhausted after hours of music, walking, and heat, you take whatever space you can find. Maybe they took turns resting, watching over each other, making the best out of a weird situation. Staying connected at Woodstock, the old-fashioned way. Before the days of Instagram stories and instant texts, staying connected at Woodstock was a whole different game. If you wanted to reach someone, you had to find a payphone, and good luck with that. Festival goers lined up sometimes for hours just to make a quick call home. Meanwhile, journalists roamed the fields with traditional cameras, snapping moments on real film, hoping to capture history without the luxury of quick previews or edits. These rare, unseen photos remind us of a time when being present mattered more than posting about it. At Woodstock, memories weren't shared instantly. They were lived, felt, and carried home. It's a beautiful reminder of a world where connection wasn't digital. It was real, raw, and unforgettable. Sri Swami Satchidananda's inspiring Woodstock moment. One of the most incredible moments captured at Woodstock is a photo of Sri Swami Satchidananda, a truly legendary figure. Not everyone knows this, but he actually gave the festival's opening speech, setting the tone for everything that followed. Imagine standing in front of 500,000 people and beginning with the simple words, "Brothers and sisters." Right away, he created this powerful feeling of unity. During his speech, he spoke deeply about the tragedy of war and how music has the power to heal wounds that politics and violence never could. He believed music was a force greater than any weapon. It's amazing to think about how his words helped shape the spirit of Woodstock, a gathering that wasn't just about music, but about peace, hope, and a whole new way of thinking. Lost in a book at Woodstock. Out of all the unforgettable sights at Woodstock, one moment really stands out. A young man perched high above the crowd, completely absorbed in a book. It wasn't just unusual that he was reading during the chaos, it was where he chose to do it. Balanced in a spot that seemed almost impossible to reach, he looked calm and completely at peace. You have to ask yourself, how did he even get up there? And how was he able to stay so steady while 500,000 people moved below him? This photo isn't just about a daring stunt, it's about the spirit of Woodstock itself, a place where people chased freedom in their own way. In the middle of the noise and celebration, he found his own escape, and that, in itself, says everything about that incredible moment in history. No space to breathe at Woodstock. If you didn't like crowds, Woodstock in 1969 was definitely not the place for you. The festival grounds were absolutely packed. It felt like being squeezed into a giant can of sardines. Finding a spot to sit, stand, or even breathe took some real effort. And as the hours rolled on, the crowd just kept pressing closer together. There wasn't much personal space to speak of. If you managed to move an inch, someone else would fill that gap before you even realized it. It was a challenge, no doubt about it. But somehow, the energy, the excitement, and the music made it all worth it. People weren't just packed together, they were sharing something unforgettable. For 3 days, strangers became neighbors, and the crowd itself became part of the magic. Woodstock's overcrowded farm. When Woodstock was first planned, organizers expected maybe 200,000 people to show up. A big crowd, but manageable. But what happened next, nobody saw coming. Instead of 200,000, over 500,000 people flooded into that little dairy farm in Bethel, New York. Overnight, it turned from a quiet stretch of farmland into a sea of music lovers, energy, and pure excitement. The original setup didn't stand a chance against the tide of people. What was meant to be a peaceful, intimate gathering exploded into something historic. A massive, living, breathing moment that no one could have planned for. It's almost like the spirit of Woodstock couldn't be contained. It pulled people in from everywhere, creating one of the most legendary events in music history, a true once-in-a-lifetime experience. If you could go back to Woodstock for just one day, what would you want to experience first? The music, the people, or the atmosphere? The trash crisis at Woodstock. With hundreds of thousands of people packed onto that little farm, it didn't take long before trash started piling up everywhere at Woodstock. The organizers were completely overwhelmed. Overflowing trash bins became a normal sight, and people had no choice but to sit on hillsides covered in garbage. It got so bad that the piles of trash didn't just disappear when the music ended. According to the Village Voice back in 1969, those mounds of garbage stayed there for weeks after the festival. This photo really shows a side of Woodstock we don't often think about, the environmental mess left behind. Even in the middle of music and magic, Woodstock was far from perfect, and that's part of what makes its story so real. The traffic jam that became Woodstock legend. Imagine being told to expect 50,000 to maybe 200,000 people, and then watching in shock as 500,000 show up. That's exactly what happened at Woodstock. The crowd was way bigger than anything organizers had ever dreamed of, and the tiny rural roads just couldn't handle it. What followed was an epic traffic jam. Cars stretched out for miles in every direction, completely locking up the countryside for 3 straight days. Thousands of people had to abandon their cars and walk the rest of the way just to be part of the magic. It turned Woodstock into more than just a music festival. It became a wild, living phenomenon, growing way beyond anyone's plans. It was messy, unexpected, and absolutely unforgettable, and it's part of what made Woodstock a legend. Sly and the Family Stone's groundbreaking Woodstock performance. When Sly and the Family Stone hit the stage on the second day of Woodstock, the energy instantly changed. This band wasn't just about the music, They were breaking barriers too. Made up of men and women from different races, they stood for everything Woodstock was supposed to be about: unity, freedom, and change. Their performance of "Stand" absolutely electrified the crowd, and it's easy to see why. Their sound was explosive, their message was powerful, and their presence was unforgettable. For their groundbreaking set, they earned $7,000, a huge paycheck for the time, and a sign of just how important they were. Looking back at these rare photos, you can feel the excitement in the air. Sly and the Family Stone didn't just perform, they made history. Airborne adventures at Woodstock. Woodstock wasn't just about the music, it was about the pure, wild joy of being free. And sometimes, that meant literally taking flight. In the middle of all the chaos, some festival goers found a whole new way to have fun, launching themselves into the air using an improvised trampoline. One incredible photo shows a woman soaring skyward, tossed high by a group of laughing friends holding a makeshift trampoline. Sure, it looks risky, and it probably was. But at Woodstock, the spirit of adventure always seemed to beat out caution. Moments like this captured the heart of the festival. It wasn't about rules or limits. It was about finding joy, making memories, and turning an open field into the ultimate playground for freedom and laughter. Walking to Woodstock, the cars they left behind. Getting to Woodstock by car? It was almost impossible, like chasing a rainbow you could never catch. Massive traffic jams stretched for miles, turning highways into parking lots. Faced with hours, even days of being stuck, thousands of people made a bold choice. They ditched their cars and kept going on foot. They were so drawn to the music, the energy, and the once-in-a-lifetime feeling of Woodstock that no traffic jam was going to stop them. For miles, the roadsides were lined with abandoned cars, a surreal sight that became part of the Woodstock legend. The festival had a pull stronger than any engine. It wasn't just about reaching a concert. It was about chasing a dream. And nothing, not even miles of standstill traffic, could stand in their way. Bathing the Woodstock Way. Let's be real. Woodstock wasn't exactly a luxury resort. Held on a working farm, fancy bathrooms or showers were never part of the plan. So what did the festival goers do? They got creative. One unforgettable sight: groups of people lined up, taking baths the old-fashioned way, with nothing but a hosepipe and a lot of laughter. Right there, out in the open, folks scrubbed off the mud and sweat, turning a simple garden hose into the ultimate communal shower. It wasn't glamorous, but it didn't matter. In that moment, it wasn't about comfort. It was about making the best of what you had. That scrappy, joyful spirit defined Woodstock. A hose, some sunshine, and a few new friends were all you really needed to feel alive. How Woodstock's sound towers became human high-rises. This photo captures something Woodstock never really planned for, but totally embraced. The towering structures you see were originally built just to hold the massive speakers. Organizers knew they'd need serious sound for the big crowd. What they didn't expect was how big that crowd would actually get. As the fields filled up and space ran out, festival goers got inventive. They started climbing the sound towers, turning them into makeshift platforms to watch the action from above. What started as simple sound equipment quickly became prime real estate for the boldest fans. It's a perfect example of the spirit that defined Woodstock. When plans went sideways, people didn't panic. They improvised, they adapted, and they made something unforgettable out of pure, free-spirited energy. Finding love at Woodstock. In the middle of all the wild energy and non-stop excitement of Woodstock, something softer still managed to shine through. Love. Take a closer look at this couple, tucked into each other's arms, surrounded by a sea of noise and movement. While thousands danced and the music roared, they created a quiet little world of their own. It's amazing how, even with the chaos swirling around them, they carved out a few private moments, just the two of them. A simple touch, a glance, a shared smile. These tiny acts of tenderness stood strong against the backdrop of madness. At Woodstock, it wasn't just the music that made memories. It was the people and the moments like this. Kindness and tragedy at Woodstock. In the middle of the music, the madness and the magic of Woodstock, there were also powerful moments of kindness. Accidents happened, just like they do at every big festival, but people stepped up to help. Two women, in particular, are remembered for caring for those who fell ill, offering comfort when it was needed most. Of course, not all the stories had happy endings. Sadly, there were two deaths during the festival. One was a 17-year-old boy, Raymond Mizak. The other was Richard Beer, an 18-year-old Marine. But even through the heartbreak, life found a way. Two babies were born during the festival. Moments like these remind us, Woodstock was raw, real, and unforgettable. Were you, or someone you know, at Woodstock? Share your favorite memory or story with us in the comments. The medical crisis at Woodstock. With 500,000 people packed into a muddy field at Woodstock, it's no surprise that basic medical supplies ran out fast. But what's crazy is just how unprepared they really were. When people got cuts, scrapes, or infections, there wasn't enough antiseptic to go around. Some festival goers even used vodka to clean their wounds, because that's all they had. Eventually, helicopters had to fly in emergency shipments of medical supplies. When those choppers finally touched down, it must have felt like a huge sigh of relief for everyone who needed help. Just imagine being surrounded by hundreds of thousands of people, the music blaring, the mud flying. But if you got hurt, real medical help was almost impossible to find. Finding shade at Woodstock. Under the blazing August sun, finding a little relief at Woodstock wasn't easy. There were no air-conditioned tents, no misting stations like we see at modern festivals. If you wanted to cool off, you had to get creative. Some people squeezed into whatever patches of shade they could find, under trees, behind vans, even huddled in the shadow of a speaker tower. A lot of folks turned their cars and vans into makeshift homes for the weekend, creating cozy little camps in the middle of the madness. Sure, it was hot, sweaty, and rough around the edges, but the heat didn't matter as much when you were part of something this big. That sense of camaraderie, of everyone facing it together, made Woodstock unforgettable, no matter how high the temperature climbed. Joe Cocker's Stormy farewell at Woodstock. Joe Cocker hit the stage on the very last day of Woodstock, and what a performance it was. He poured everything he had into his set, leaving the crowd electrified. But right after he finished, nature decided to put on its own show. A massive thunderstorm rolled in, shaking up the entire festival and sending people scrambling for cover. It's wild to think about. One minute, the music's soaring, and the next, the skies open up. For his unforgettable performance, Joe Cocker earned $1,300, a pretty solid payday for the time. Looking back, it's easy to get lost in the legendary photos, but moments like this remind us, Woodstock wasn't just about what you could see. It was about everything happening behind the scenes too. Stories you can almost feel in the air. Mystical moments at Woodstock. Amid all the music, dancing, and celebration at Woodstock, there was also a deeper, mystical energy floating through the air. In one corner of the festival grounds, a woman had set up a small spiritual space under a tree, complete with tarot cards spread carefully across the trunk. She was reading palms, offering glimpses into the future for curious festival goers. One unforgettable photo captures a young woman smiling brightly as her palm is read, as if she's just heard a beautiful secret whispered straight into her heart. Even in the middle of all the chaos, there were quiet moments where people searched for something more, something beyond the here and now. Unexpected trips at Woodstock. Woodstock is famous for its music, its magic, and yes, its mind-altering experiences. But not everyone showed up looking to get high. Many came just for the music, hoping to soak up the atmosphere without any chemical help. Unfortunately, for some, the trip found them instead. According to a report in the Times-Herald Record, there were shady dealers handing out free drinks laced with psychedelic substances without telling anyone. Some festival goers, just looking for a simple drink to cool off, ended up on wild, unexpected journeys they never signed up for. It's a side of Woodstock we don't always hear about: the unintended trips, the surprises that weren't all part of the plan. Even for those seeking only the music, the spirit of Woodstock had a way of sweeping everyone into something much bigger. The food shortage at Woodstock. When it came to food, a lot of people arrived at Woodstock with high hopes, but not much of a plan. Some packed a few snacks, maybe some deli meat, beef jerky, or a can of orange juice. But definitely not enough for 3 days under the sun. Most figured they could just buy what they needed once they got there. But when the crowd exploded far beyond expectations, many food vendors panicked and bailed. Suddenly, thousands were left hungry and thirsty with nowhere to turn. Thankfully, the Hog Farm Collective stepped up. They served cups of granola and small meals, doing whatever they could to keep spirits high and stomachs full. It wasn't glamorous, but it showed the heart of Woodstock, people helping people when it mattered most. The long goodbye at Woodstock. As the final notes faded at Woodstock, a different kind of feeling settled over the crowd, a mix of sadness and relief. This photo captures it perfectly. A young man looking less than thrilled about heading back to reality. After 4 days of music, freedom, and living outside the rules, the idea of returning to everyday life felt almost unbearable. Sure, people missed the comforts of home, a warm shower, a real bed, maybe even a quiet moment alone. But walking away from Woodstock meant leaving behind something unforgettable. It wasn't just a concert, it was a once-in-a-lifetime experience. That long, slow walk home wasn't just about distance, it was about saying goodbye to a dream. And for many, it was a farewell they would never truly get over. The hidden health crisis at Woodstock. Woodstock may be remembered for peace, love, and music, but behind the scenes, it was also a health nightmare waiting to happen. The medical team hired for the festival was completely overwhelmed, only prepared for a fraction of the crowd that actually showed up. Staff reported 23 epileptic seizures, 57 cases of heat exhaustion, and close to 800 bad drug trips. And with so many people ditching their shoes, foot injuries were everywhere. Cuts, infections, burns. It was a dangerous game walking barefoot through the muddy, overcrowded grounds. Looking back, it's almost unbelievable that things didn't turn out even worse. In the middle of the chaos, it was pure luck and a lot of resilience that kept Woodstock from becoming a full-blown medical disaster. Finding shelter in a Volkswagen at Woodstock. In the middle of Woodstock's rain, mud, and mayhem, some people got seriously creative about finding a place to rest. This photo captures one clever guy who figured out a simple, brilliant solution. He climbed right into the trunk of his vintage Volkswagen Beetle. While thousands of others were slogging through the mud, trying to make their way home, he found a dry, cozy spot to take a nap. Sure, it wasn't exactly 5-star comfort, but compared to sleeping in the open rain, it was pure genius. Moments like this really show the spirit of Woodstock, people adapting, improvising, and finding small pockets of comfort wherever they could. It wasn't always glamorous, but it was unforgettable. Sometimes, survival just meant thinking outside the box, or in this case, outside the back seat. Woodstock's best seat in the house. This photo captures something magical, a group of free-spirited festival goers who found what might have been the perfect spot to soak it all in. They carved out their own little haven, far enough from the crowds to relax, but close enough to feel the music pulse through the air. And in the background, an old bus, decked out in swirling psychedelic designs, standing like a vibrant symbol of everything Woodstock represented. It's the kind of scene that instantly transports you back to 1969, a world fueled by color, creativity, and pure freedom. The traffic jam after Woodstock. As Woodstock's final notes faded and the 3 days of peace and music came to an end, a new kind of chaos took over. Thousands of festival-goers tried to make their way back to their cars and then out onto the narrow country roads. The result? A massive traffic jam that stretched for miles, slowing the mass exodus to a frustrating crawl. But it wasn't just the festival crowd feeling the pain. Local residents found themselves trapped in their own homes, unable to leave their driveways or get into town for basic needs. The peaceful farmland around Bethel, New York, turned into a parking lot almost overnight. When even the cops caught the Woodstock vibe, keeping order at Woodstock was a nearly impossible task. With 500,000 people and non-stop music, chaos was pretty much the default setting. In one unforgettable photo, a group of friends are seen casually hanging out by a police car, and the funny thing is, there's not a single officer in sight. Where did they go? Maybe they were off trying to manage the madness. Or maybe, just maybe, they got swept up in the spirit of Woodstock too. It's easy to imagine even the cops taking a break to enjoy a little peace, love, and music themselves. This snapshot captures the magic of Woodstock perfectly. For a few days, even the people meant to enforce the rules seemed to just go with the flow. Max Yasgur, the farmer who made Woodstock possible. When people think of Woodstock, they usually picture the electrifying performances, Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, and all those unforgettable moments on stage. But none of it would have happened without one man, Max Yasgur. Originally, the festival was supposed to take place in Wallkill, New York, but last-minute legal troubles forced the organizers to scramble. That's when they found Yasgur's 600-acre dairy farm in Bethel. Max wasn't just offering land, he was offering a chance for something bigger to happen. Despite pushback from some neighbors, he opened his heart and his property to 500,000 strangers, believing in the spirit of peace and music. Thanks to Max Yasgur's generosity and open mind, Woodstock didn't just survive, it became the legend we celebrate today. The Legacy of Woodstock. Woodstock wasn't just another music festival, it was a defining moment in American history. It captured the spirit of the 1960s, freedom, peace, love, and a bold new way of thinking. To honor that incredible legacy, the Bethel Woods Center for the Arts now stands on the very grounds where it all unfolded. More than just a concert venue, Bethel Woods is a living tribute to everything Woodstock stood for. It keeps the spirit of unity, music, and hope alive for new generations to experience. The 1960s gave us more than just iconic songs. They gave us Woodstock, a gathering that broke all boundaries and brought people together like never before. And thanks to places like Bethel Woods, that spirit will never be forgotten. 20 best gone groups of the 1960s that have fallen off the radar. Ever wondered what happened to the bands that dominated the 60s? From chart-topping hits to fading into obscurity, these iconic groups left their mark on music history. The Outsiders. Curious about the band behind the unforgettable hit Time Won't Let Me? Let's dive into the story of The Outsiders. Formed in Cleveland, Ohio, this American rock band was led by guitarist Tom King and made their mark in 1966. Their breakthrough came early that year with Time Won't Let Me, a catchy track that reached number 5 on the US charts in April and became their signature song. The band followed this success with a string of other hits, including 3 additional top 40 singles in 1966, and released 4 albums throughout the mid-60s. However, bad luck seemed to plague them. One of their biggest misfortunes came when they turned down a song, Bend Me, Shape Me. which went on to become a major hit for the American breed. Despite their early success, the Outsiders struggled with numerous setbacks, including lineup and producer changes, which hindered their ability to sustain momentum. By 1970, the band had dissolved, with none of their later singles making it to the top 100. Over the years, the Outsiders have reformed several times with varying original members, yet their story remains one of missed opportunities and what could have been. Their legacy, however, lives on through Time Won't Let Me, which continues to capture the spirit of 60s rock. The Circle. The Circle's journey began in the world of frat rock under the name The Rondells. They honed their skills playing college parties and local gigs, developing a sound that blended folk, pop, and rock influences. But it was a chance encounter with John Lennon that would change their trajectory forever. Lennon, impressed by their talent, suggested a name change, The Circle, a playful twist on circle that reflected their tight-knit musical bond. In 1966, The Circle released Red Rubber Ball, a song co-written by none other than Paul Simon. The song's infectious bounce, catchy melody, and relatable lyrics about lost love resonated with audiences, propelling it to number 2 on the Billboard pop charts. Red Rubber Ball became an instant classic, capturing the carefree spirit of the 1960s and establishing The Circle as a major force in the music world. The Circle's newfound fame landed them a coveted spot as the opening act for the Beatles during their 1966 summer tour of America. Sharing the stage with the Fab Four exposed them to a massive audience and cemented their status as a rising star. Imagine the thrill of performing for thousands of screaming fans, night after night, alongside the biggest band in the world. It was a dream come true for The Circle, a testament to their talent and hard work. The band even ventured into the world of film, appearing as themselves and composing the score for the 1968 teen exploitation film, The Miniskirt Mob. This foray into film showcased their versatility and further cemented their place in 1960s pop culture. Sadly, despite the massive success of Red Rubber Ball, The Circle struggled to maintain their momentum. Subsequent singles failed to capture the same magic, and their commercial success waned. The band ultimately disbanded in 1968, leaving fans wondering what could have been. The Left Banka. Walk Away Renee. Ever heard of Baroque pop? The Left Bank is a perfect introduction. Formed in New York City in 1965, this unique pop rock group created a sound unlike any other. The original lineup included Michael Brown, keyboards, George Cameron, drums, Tom Finn, bass, Jeff Winfield, guitar, and Steve Martin, vocals. Their music was known for Martin's soaring vocals and Brown's rich orchestral arrangements, blending pop with lush strings. The Left Bank sound was dubbed Baroque pop by the press, and their big hit, Walk Away Renee, became a classic, reaching number 5 on the Billboard charts in late 1966. Their follow-up, Pretty Ballerina, also did well, hitting number 15. But despite the promise of songs like Desiree, which didn't chart as high, internal struggles, poor management, and financial issues led to their breakup in 1968. The band briefly reunited in the early 70s to record a few songs for the movie Hot Pants Holiday, 1971, but the conflicts that plagued them remained. Still, the Left Bank's legacy endures through their timeless Baroque pop hits that continue to captivate new generations of listeners. Jimmy Gilmer and the Fireballs. The Fireballs, as they were originally known, began their musical journey in the late 1950s as an instrumental rock and roll group. They honed their skills playing local gigs and developing a sound that blended rockabilly, surf rock, and a touch of country twang. Their instrumental prowess and tight musicianship earned them a loyal following, but it was the addition of vocalist Jimmy Gilmer that would propel them to superstardom. With Gilmer's smooth vocals and charismatic stage presence, the Fireballs transformed into Jimmy Gilmer and the Fireballs. In 1963, they released Sugar Shack, a song that would change their lives forever. The song's irresistible rhythm, catchy melody, and lyrics that conjured images of teenage romance and dance parties captured the hearts of a nation. Sugar Shack topped the Billboard Hot 100 for 5 glorious weeks and even reached #1 on the R&B chart, a testament to its crossover appeal. The song earned the group a coveted gold record and was crowned the top song of 1963 based on record sales. Sugar Shack became the soundtrack for a generation, its infectious energy filling dance halls and airwaves across the country. The Fireballs, riding high on the success of Sugar Shack, followed up with another catchy hit in 1964, Daisy Pedal Pickin'. While it didn't reach the same dizzying heights as Sugar Shack, it peaked at a respectable number 15 on the Hot 100, further solidifying their presence in the music scene. Despite their early chart success, Jimmy Gilmer and the Fireballs struggled to replicate the magic of Sugar Shack. Subsequent releases failed to achieve the same level of popularity, and their time in the spotlight began to fade. However, their early hits, particularly Sugar Shack, cemented their place in rock and roll history. The song remains a beloved classic, instantly recognizable, and guaranteed to get people dancing. Peppermint Rainbow. Will you be staying after Sunday? If that song rings a bell, you're probably thinking of Peppermint Rainbow. This sunshine pop band from Baltimore made their mark with that feel-good hit. Formed in 1967 as the New York Times, they played local gigs in the Mid-Atlantic before catching the attention of talent agent Alan White. In 1968, he brought them to New York to audition for producer Paul Lecca, who was so impressed that he signed them and changed their name to Peppermint Rainbow. Their first single, Walking in Different Circles, didn't make an impact, but their follow-up, Will You Be Staying After Sunday, hit number 21 on the Cashbox Top 100 and reached number 19 in Canada. In the US, it peaked at number 32. Despite the early success of this track, Peppermint Rainbow couldn't sustain their momentum, and their time in the limelight was short-lived. Still, their bright, catchy sound is a lasting reminder of the late 60s sunshine pop era. Jay and the Americans. Ever heard Come a Little Bit Closer and wondered about the band behind this classic hit? Meet Jay and the Americans. Formed in the late 1950s, the band originally included John J. Traynor, Howie Kane, Kenny Vance, and Sandy Deane. Their biggest chart success came after Traynor was replaced by Jay Black, born David Blatt, and Marty Sanders joined the group. This new lineup solidified their place in music history, and in 2002, they were inducted into the Vocal Group Hall of Fame. The band's early hit, She Cried, 1962, with Traynor on lead vocals, reached number 5 on the Billboard charts. After Traynor's departure, Jay Black took over as lead singer, and the band saw further success with hits like Only in America, originally intended for the Drifters, Come a Little Bit Closer, 1964, which hit number 3, and Cara Mia, 1965, which hit number 4. Despite their success, the group disbanded in 1973, with most members pursuing solo careers. However, Jay Black continued to perform under the name Jay and the Americans, often with new musicians. Their legacy lives on through their iconic hits and influence on pop and rock music. 4 Jacks and a Jill. Ever heard of a South African band that took the world by storm in the 60s? Meet 4 Jacks and a Jill. Originally formed in 1964 as the Nevadas, the band was notable for being the first group in South Africa to sport long hair, a bold move at the time. After a brief stint as the Zombies, not to be confused with the British band, they added lead singer Glenys Lynn and rebranded as 4 Jacks and a Jill. The band's breakthrough came with Master Jack, a song that hit number 18 on the US Billboard Hot 100 and reached number 3 on the Adult Contemporary chart. The song was a huge success globally, topping the charts in South Africa, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Malaysia, and Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe. It remains their biggest international hit, and the catchy tune helped put them on the map worldwide. While Four Jacks and a Jill continued to have hits in South Africa, their international recognition was largely limited to Master Jack. Beyond music, they also made an impact by recording educational storybook albums for various South African charities, leaving a lasting legacy both musically and socially. Despite their relatively brief moment in the international spotlight, the band's distinct sound and commitment to their roots continue to be celebrated. Which of these forgotten 60s bands had the biggest impact on you? Share your memories. The Flying Machine. Smile a Little Smile for Me. Ever wonder about the band behind that cheerful hit? Let's take a look at The Flying Machine. This British bubblegum pop group is best remembered for their 1969 US hit, which peaked at number 5 on the Billboard Hot 100. The Flying Machine grew out of the British band Pinkerton's Assorted Colors, known for the 1966 hit Mirror Mirror. By 1969, key members Tony Newman, singer-guitarist, Sam Kemp, singer-autoharpist, and Stuart Coleman, bassist, joined forces with Steve Jones, lead guitar, and Paul Wilkinson, drums, to form a new version of the band, with Newman now taking over as lead singer. They became The Flying Machine. Their big hit, Smile a Little Smile for Me, made waves, reaching number 5 in the US and number 6 on the AC chart. Their debut album followed in 1969, but despite this early success, their follow-up singles failed to catch on, leading to their split. While their time was short, Smile a Little Smile for Me remains their unforgettable legacy. The Buckinghams. Ever wondered about the band behind the catchy tune, Kind of a Drag? Let's dive into the story of the Buckinghams. Formed in 1965 in the Chicago area, the band consisted of Carl Giamaresi, Nick Fortuna, John Poulos, Dennis Tufano, and Dennis Mickley. Their big break came when they won a Battle of the Bands contest on a local Chicago TV show, which landed them a 2-week gig on the program. Wanting a name with a British vibe during the height of the British invasion, they decided on the Buckinghams. In 1966, the group signed with USA Records, a Chicago label, and initially found success with cover songs that did well regionally. But they needed a breakout hit for national recognition. They hit it big with Kind of a Drag, which reached number 1 on the national pop charts and sold over 1 million copies. This success led them to sign with Columbia Records, where they enjoyed another hit with Lawdy Miss Clawdy, a cover of the Lloyd Price classic. Their next major hit, Don't You Care, reached number 6. The Buckinghams became regulars on popular TV shows like The Ed Sullivan Show and American Bandstand, and continued to churn out hits like Mercy, Mercy, Mercy and Hey Baby, They're Playing Our Song in 1967. However, by 1968, things began to slow down. Their 1968 album, In One Ear and Gone Tomorrow, failed to produce a major hit, and the band experienced several lineup changes. By 1970, the Buckinghams disbanded. Despite the ups and downs, their influence on the 60s music scene remains significant, particularly through their unforgettable hits. The Fortunes. You've Got Your Troubles. Ever heard of this English harmony beat group that took the 60s by storm? Let's explore the story of the Fortunes. Formed in Birmingham, they first hit it big in 1965 with You've Got Your Troubles, a song that made the top 10 in the US, UK, and Canada. This was just the beginning of their string of hits, including Here It Comes Again and Here Comes That Rainy Day Feeling Again. They continued to find success into the 1970s with tracks like Storm in a Teacup and Freedom Come, Freedom Go. Their journey started with Summertime, Summertime, credited to the Fortunes with the Cliftones. While their second single, Caroline, didn't chart, it became famous as the theme song for the pirate radio station, Radio Caroline. Their fifth single, "You've Got Your Troubles" became their breakthrough hit, reaching number 2 on the UK charts and top 10 in the US and Canada. They followed it up with "Here It Comes Again" and "This Golden Ring." But despite the early success, the band struggled to keep the momentum going. Still, the Fortunes' early hits left a lasting mark on pop music, and their legacy continues to resonate today. The Box Tops. "The Letter." It's a song that still resonates today. But who were the band behind this classic? Let's dive into the story of the Box Tops. This iconic Memphis group burst onto the scene in 1967 with "The Letter," recorded at Chips Moman's American Sound Studio and produced by Dan Penn. Remarkably, they were one of the first rock bands to record at American Sound, and their debut hit went straight to number 1. From 1967 to 1969, the Box Tops released 5 albums and 10 singles. "The Letter" topped the charts for 4 weeks and sold over 4 million copies, earning them a gold record. Their third single, "Cry Like a Baby," also climbed the charts, reaching number 2 and selling 2 million copies. The band, originally called the DeVilles, changed their name to the Box Tops for "The Letter" to avoid conflicts with other bands. What set the Box Tops apart was their soulful sound, driven by Alex Chilton's gritty, raw vocals, which gave them a unique Memphis edge. They had a style described as "looking whiter and singing blacker," which made them stand out in the late 60s. Though their popularity waned over time, they left behind a legacy of unforgettable music. Please comment 1 to let me know you'll be watching this video until the end. Mercy. Formed in Florida, Mercy was an American pop group that captured lightning in a bottle in 1969. Their single, "Love Can Make You Happy," penned by the band's founder and lead vocalist Jack Sigler Jr., became a sensation. Its infectious melody, upbeat tempo, and lyrics celebrating the power of love resonated with audiences across the country. The song soared to number 2 on the US Billboard Hot 100 Singles chart and also peaked at number 2 on the Adult Contemporary chart, cementing its place as one of the defining pop hits of 1969. "Love Can Make You Happy" earned the group a gold record, a testament to its widespread popularity and enduring appeal. While Mercy achieved modest success with subsequent releases, none captured the same magic as "Love Can Make You Happy." However, their story doesn't end there. Unlike many bands whose time in the spotlight fades quickly, Mercy continues to perform, keeping the spirit of their hit song alive. Led by Jack Sigler Jr., the original lead vocalist and the creative force behind "Love Can Make You Happy," Mercy still tours and performs for audiences who remember the joy and optimism of that era. Their enduring presence on the stage is a testament to the power of their music and their dedication to their fans. They are a living embodiment of the song's message, proving that love, indeed, can make you happy. The Beau Brummels. Laugh, Laugh. What if I told you that America's first big response to the British invasion came from a band many thought was British? That's the Beau Brummels. Formed in 1964 in San Francisco, this folk rock group made waves with hits like "Laugh, Laugh," and "Just a Little." They captured the essence of the 1960s with their unique sound. Their early singles were produced by Sylvester Stewart, better known as Sly Stone, who would later lead Sly and the Family Stone. The Beau Brummels' blend of folk rock and pop helped them stand out as one of the first American acts to compete with the British invasion bands. Despite their early success, the band struggled with poor management, promotion, and the declining health of primary songwriter and guitarist Ron Elliott, who battled multiple sclerosis. This led to multiple breakups and reunions. Fun fact, the original version of "Laugh, Laugh" appeared on the Flintstones TV show in the Shinrock-A-Go-Go episode, cementing their place in pop culture. The McCoys. You've heard "Hang On Sloopy," But what happened to the band behind that iconic tune? Let's take a quick look at the McCoys. Known for their 1965 #1 hit, the McCoys were the ultimate garage band, young, energetic, and fronted by a fearless lead guitarist. Their sound mixed rock with bubblegum pop, making them teen favorites. But after a few hits, they faded from the spotlight, only to set the stage for a major rock legend, Rick Derringer. Like many 60s garage bands, the McCoys started as a group of high schoolers from the suburbs, drawn to the growing rock scene. They originally named themselves after a Ventures record, but eventually became Rick and the Raiders, playing around the Midwest. Their big break came with the single "You Know That I Love You" on the Sonic label, which got some local attention. The real draw, though, was Rick Zeringer, later Rick Derringer, and his blistering guitar solos. Their energy and skill even earned them spots on stage with bigger acts, sometimes even stealing the show. While the McCoys didn't last long, their impact continued through Derringer's successful solo career, cementing his place as one of the 70s top guitar heroes. The Rose Garden. Next Plane to London. Remember that catchy folk rock hit? Let's take a look at the Rose Garden, a Los Angeles-based band that made a brief but memorable impact in 1967 and 1968. Originally formed as the Blokes in 1964, they were known for covering songs by the Byrds. By 1967, the lineup solidified, and they rebranded as the Rose Garden. In 1967, they signed with Atco Records and released Next Plane to London, which became their big hit, peaking at number 17 on the Billboard Hot 100. They followed up with their debut album in January 1968, but despite the early success, their later releases didn't chart. Internal conflicts and the military draft, which claimed 2 of the band members, led to their breakup by the end of 1968. Though their time was short, Next Plane to London remains a beloved classic, capturing the essence of late 60s folk rock. Did I miss any bands from the 60s that you think deserved more spotlight? Drop their names below. Classics 4. Ever heard the haunting saxophone of Spooky and wondered about the band behind it? Let's take a look at the story of Classics 4. Formed in 1965 in Jacksonville, Florida, the band, led by Dennis Yost, became known for their hits Spooky, Stormy, and Traces, which have since become cover standards. The group started out as The Classics, a cover band performing Ventures songs. The name came from the classic drum set Yost played and his unique stand-up drummer style. At first, they stuck to instrumental covers, but when fans requested vocals, Dennis stepped up. This shift marked the band's new direction. Their debut single, Pollyanna, written by Joe South, was in the style of the Four Seasons. But due to another act already using the name The Classics, they added 4 to their moniker. From 1967 to 1969, Classics 4 racked up hits. Spooky peaked at number 3, Stormy at number 5, and Traces climbed to number 2. Their smooth mix of pop and jazz, combined with Yost's distinctive voice, made them a favorite. However, as the years passed, their popularity faded, and after a few lineup changes, they eventually faded from the scene. The Seeds. Ever felt the raw, edgy vibe of garage rock? Then you've likely encountered The Seeds. Best known for their iconic hit, Pushin' Too Hard, this Los Angeles-based band fused the gritty sound of garage rock with the experimental spirit of psychedelia. Formed in 1965 by Sky Saxon, vocals, guitar, and Jan Savage, guitar, the lineup was completed by keyboardist Daryl Hooper and drummer Rick Andridge. In 1966, they signed with GNP Crescendo and released Pushin' Too Hard, their first single, which quickly climbed into the top 40 in early 1967. The band followed with similar tracks like Mr. Farmer and Can't Seem to Make You Mine, though neither reached the same commercial heights as Pushin' Too Hard. Despite this, Can't Seem to Make You Mine came close, just missing the top 40. Throughout the rest of the 60s, the Seeds continued to experiment with the post-Sgt. Pepper psychedelia and art rock trends, but their later releases struggled to capture mainstream attention. The band dissolved as the decade came to a close, but their legacy lives on as a quintessential example of 1960s garage rock and psychedelic exploration. The Seeds remain a touchstone for fans of the raw, rebellious sound that defined the era. The T-Bones. Ever wondered about the band behind the catchy tune, "No Matter What Shape, Your Stomach's In"? Let's dive into the story of the T-Bones. Active from 1965 to 1966, the T-Bones were a group of American studio musicians, recording under Liberty Records. Most of their early recordings were done by the famous session players known as the Wrecking Crew, a name synonymous with some of the biggest hits of the 60s. It's also important to note that they should not be confused with a British band of the same name, which led to the US group being referred to as the US T-Bones in the UK. The T-Bones' biggest hit came in 1966 with the single "No Matter What Shape, Your Stomach's In," which was based on a jingle from an Alka-Seltzer commercial. The song reached number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100, becoming a memorable pop hit of the era. Following this success, Liberty quickly released an album under the same name, featuring the same Wrecking Crew session musicians. However, the session musicians, making too much money from their studio work in Los Angeles, weren't interested in touring. To promote the album, Liberty created a public version of the T-Bones to appear in live performances and on TV. Ironically, none of the musicians in this public group played on the hit single or the album Sippin' and Chippin'. The public version of the T-Bones did record the band's final album, Everyone's Gone to the Moon and Other Trips. After the group's brief moment in the spotlight, members Dan Hamilton, Joe Frank Carollo, and Tommy Reynolds went on to find success in the 1970s as the soft rock trio Hamilton, Joe Frank, and Reynolds. While the T-Bones' time in the spotlight was short-lived, their catchy, memorable tunes, especially their Alka-Seltzer-inspired hit, remain a fun part of 60s pop history. Spiral Staircase. More today than yesterday. It's one of those songs that sticks with you, but the band behind it might slip your mind. That band was Spiral Staircase, the quintessential one-hit wonder. Their 1969 hit became a classic, still playing on oldie stations today. But what happened to them after that? Originally called the Fidalians, the band got their big break in 1967 when music exec Gary Usher, who worked with the Beach Boys and the Byrds, caught their show in El Monte, California. Impressed, he signed them to Columbia, but with one condition: they needed a new name. Inspired by the 1946 film The Spiral Staircase, they became Spiral Staircase, with a cool 60s twist on the spelling. Columbia also had them adopt the long hair and hippie vibe that was all the rage at the time. Despite the buzz, the band's success didn't last. More Today Than Yesterday was their one big hit, and after that, they quickly faded from the scene. But that song? It's a timeless gem, keeping Spiral Staircase alive in music history. The Crazy World of Arthur Brown. Fire. Ever heard of a rock band with a flaming helmet and wild face paint? Let's dive into the story of the crazy world of Arthur Brown. Formed in 1967, this English rock group was led by singer Arthur Brown, with Vincent Crane on Hammond organ, Draken Thieker on drums, and Nick Greenwood on bass. Their sound was a mix of intricate organ and brass arrangements, paired with Brown's powerful operatic voice. But what really set Arthur Brown apart was his theatrical stage persona, which included face paint and a helmet set on fire. Their breakthrough hit, Fire, released in 1968, sold over 1 million copies, hitting number 1 in the UK and Canada, and number 2 in the US. It earned a gold disc and became a classic. The band's larger-than-life performances had them sharing stages with icons like The Who, Jimi Hendrix, The Doors, and The Small Faces. Despite the success, internal conflicts and the challenge of maintaining such a dramatic live show led to the band's decline. but Arthur Brown's influence on theatrical rock, along with the iconic fire, still burns brightly in rock history. Thanks for joining us on this journey through Woodstock's hidden moments. If we missed any memories you know about, drop them in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Who remembers? With someone who loves a good story. Until next time, thanks so much for watching.